Well, hello people, and welcome back to another Cities 2 video. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today I wanted to hang around in Yokeley checking out the first patch from Iceflakes, the new developers of Cities Skylines 2, which has added some new gameplay elements alongside a few graphical tweaks and UI changes. We'll check out exactly what's changed and then I'll give my opinion on this quite important moment for Cities Skylines 2 as the first patch has arrived from the new developers. Otherwise, without further ado, let's get stuck into this new patch, shall we? So our first point in the patch notes is that bicycling has been reduced by up to 80% because there were simply too many of them. For those of you who watch Yokeley, you remember this bridge here was especially hammered with cyclists, which is now dramatically reduced. In their City Corner blog, they did go on to say that this is only a temporary solution to the problem, and that they do eventually want more cyclists back. But you can see it's severely reduced now, just down to one here. Down a previously very busy main arterial road right by our transit hub, with all this cycling infrastructure around. There is essentially hardly anyone cycling anymore, but I realise this is a temporary solution to the vast amount of cyclist problem, so I expect this to be tweaked again in the future. Now, Yokeley for a long time has suffered with endless death issues. In fact, you can still see them up here in the hills, despite the fact we're very much in the green for health and death care. Even when we've been way in the green, death has still persisted across the city. In the patch notes, they go on to say that they fixed the time of day not being taken into account when determining death in updates, which would cause most citizens to die between 12 AM and 6 AM. They now calculate the citizen deaths 16 times per citizen per day instead of 4, to help further reduce the number of citizens dying at the same time, essentially just spreading out the number of deaths per day, rather than it all being crammed into a small window. And on easy mode, which I don't really play on, citizens will actually now pass away. Previously, 80% of the citizens in easy mode would never die, essentially nullifying the entire death care system. In Yokeley, I'm certainly noticing significantly less death symbols knocking about the city, so hopefully this will continue to go as the simulation runs. We'll also notice several updates to the UI, including a reworked demand bar icon, which is much more visual now, alongside updating icons of roundabouts, which I really like this change actually. These are much more visual as to what sort of roundabout it is you're placing, alongside some updates to our road service icons, including the road maintenance depot and the tree function of the upgrade to roads. They've also updated some of the info view icons up in the left information tab here, with also new icons for pollution types. When you click on a building that produces any kind of pollution, you'll notice you have a slightly more nicer visual to represent exactly what it's making for you here. A preserve the age of your trees function has been added, so if you wouldn't like them to age and stay the same shape, this is great for a tree lining bit of detailing. We can disable growth and harvesting with an option here, which will leave that tree at whatever age it is when you place it. This is a nice little quality of life. The aging trees can really damage your detailing sometimes, so tree age preservation is quite handy for me. And they've also made the terrain tools significantly less aggressive, so you can get a slightly more refined detail of terrain, terraforming, whatever it is you're doing here. But previously from this, your raised terrain tool would be very aggressive. Now it's just a little more tame, a little calmer, so you're not going to destroy your landscape as easily with these slightly less sensitive terraforming tools here. Now coming on to the visual section of this update, they've improved the shadow rendering and flickering on high quality settings. I'm still noticing some flickering I think, but I think this bit of the patch is very much dependent on how powerful your machine is. I play CS2 on a 3080 Ti, which is by no means a weak card, but certainly not the highest end these days. So I think very much the flickering and graphical improvements, your mileage will really vary here based on how good specifically your GPU is, but your PC overall. They've also added the Recolor mod, which is very nice indeed. When you click on any building now, you have the option to color it as you see fit using a hex code. You can even type in the hex code here if you want. So if we wanted big pink house, for example, and we could very easily create that over here. Really fun functionality this. You can also set up a number of palettes, so you can reuse these across the city. You can copy them and paste them to another house if you want a whole uniform kind of housing style on the same street. Might be good for like a gated community vibe this. You can also set this to all of the same buildings. You'll notice the other ones change in the background, alongside resetting all default colors. So really nice quality of life improvement this. I'm quite surprised they went with Recolor as their first mod integration. It seems kind of a random one, but perhaps it was the lowest hanging of the mod integration fruit, if you like. I can imagine this isn't a particularly difficult implementation with just changing color values on already existing assets. That doesn't massively affect the simulation in any way, if at all, I would imagine. So big thumbs up for color customization. Be quite a lot of fun to see how this affects our vanilla gameplay, I think. Tree collision has also been adjusted. Previously, this was an absolute nightmare. If you wanted to create dense forests, you would not be able to place your trees within like a good wide radius of this. But now you can see just how much closer we can get to it. It's essentially only counting the trunk of the tree as the collision radius and not all of the leaves around it. This is great. This was such a pain. So much happy to be able to place our trees much closer together. You'll be able to create significantly denser, more realistic forests with this mechanic in action. The line tool has also received a similar update, with spacing being adjusted, allowing trees and other lined objects to be placed much closer together without them colliding and telling you that they're too close. So, love these little pain points being slowly removed is huge thumbs up from me. This is what I like to see happening here. Remove the pain from the moment-to-moment gameplay experience. One of the biggest criticisms CS2's visuals has received since it released was its snow visuals. They've added snow support for decal-based lot surfaces. You will see snow in the gardens now, but not for all of them. I guess maybe they haven't added all support for assets yet. But I see some, and then some don't. You get a real good example of it here, actually, as to what assets have received their snow coverage and which ones haven't. Or maybe it is indeed just this kind of mowed grass texture that hasn't received the snow support. Snow for me is still a little overexposed. Like that's very bright to look at. I get that snow is bright, but when you're playing it and there's this much of it, again, it's not the best snow visual ever, but it's at least a step in the right direction with these snow lots all actually looking like they've been snowed on now, besides seemingly the mown grass. But a step in the right direction at least with your snow visual. Speaking of the snow, they've also temporarily removed the snow rendering from vehicles, so cars in your city will no longer drive around now with a windshield full of snow. The whole fog and weather system has now been updated as well. So some maps will just not receive snow anymore, full stop. And they've also balanced the amount of clouds so that clear skies are not shown as often as they were. I have to say I am quite a big fan of the skybox change. I think it's a much more realistic looking sky. And yeah, I'll be interested to see what they can do with this. Maybe we'll get kind of seasonal weather events coming in, monsoons, hurricanes or something that could help balance into the simulation. But the sky does look good here. I'm quite a big fan of how this looks now. So another major point of the patch notes is improvements to the nighttime visual, which it certainly has improved. It doesn't quite render the full distance yet, and it's still absolutely no way near the CS1 nighttime visuals, but it is better. There's remarkably less flickering amongst the lights, which was easily the biggest issue. They still don't render super far. Like we can see down in the town of Hollandaise at the end of the valley, it's all dark down here until we get closer. So I think, well, I hope that is going to be improved slightly, but certainly the night visual itself is a little bit better from the right angle, I think. The night sky texture has also been updated as well to give us a pretty starry night, which is quite cool. I guess it's better than what it was. There was a lot of different weird coloured stars in the nights previously, so this is significantly simpler now, isn't it? Just quite a thick night sky, actually. And then the visuals down on the street here during our night timer. Again, it's better, but it isn't there, I think is the take-home point to take from it. During the photo mode nighttime visuals, you will notice the flickering still be quite a bit worse if we were to drag ourselves into the depths of nighttime. You can see here it really starts to flicker again. Which is what it was doing before, but this is via photo mode day control. So it still makes kind of recording nighttime cinematics essentially impossible because it just looks terrible. Again, I'm hoping they can get it back to where it was in Cities 1, because I'll leave some footage up on screen of nighttime CS1. It really is a night and day difference between the two themes. So again, I think very much like with the snow work, it's a step in the right direction, but it isn't quite there just yet. Which pretty much wraps up the look at the patch. It's not a massive one, but it is certainly steps in the right direction. Changes to the line tool and the tree collision, UI improvements, nighttime improvements, and the integration of a first mod in the form of Recolor. I guess you could also count the line tool as a mod integration, but we did get that added in CS1 as well. On a related note to this video, I am also due to travel to Stockholm in the middle of March to meet Iceflake, a very similar event to what we did in 2024, when a bunch of content creators went to visit Tampere to meet Colossal Order. So that same thing is essentially happening again. I will leave it up to other content creators to confirm or not confirm their attendance at the event, but it will be in the middle of March. I'll make a follow-up video on that about what we learned from Iceflake, what conversations I have with them, and there will be a post up on the community tab where you can submit your favourite requests. And during my notes in preparation for this meeting, I will include the top voted ones. So check out the community tab if you want to help contribute to that conversation. I'll also make a travel vlog as well, exactly like I did when I was in Tampere, when I visit Stockholm. So expect more information on this around the 3rd or 4th week of March, I should imagine. So it's a decent first impression from Iceflake, and it's nice to see the game's development turning much more to improved quality of life over new content, which is desperately what CS2 needs. I would think for a good 12 months. I don't really want to see any new DLCs for CS2 until the base game is in a significantly more stable state, for which this patch has made strides toward that, but it isn't there yet. As I mentioned, your mileage with the visual improvements will vary based on how powerful your machine is. From the feedback I've seen amongst the community, it seems to be around 60% positive, 40% negative, and I think that is reflecting of people's machines. People with the higher end computers are seeing much more improvements compared to those without. But let me know how you're finding this patch in the comments. Has it pulled you back to CS2? Or is it simply not enough to get you to come and reinstall the game again? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to check the community post as always. Enormous shout out to the patrons and YouTube members bankrolling these videos. Links down to both below if you are interested. Otherwise, I'll see you for an episode in Yokeley very soon. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.